Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and with me, I've got a full house. Welcome, Mac
What's good?
and Gio.
What's going on, guys?
The Champions League returned this week, and so you already know we're going to be reviewing all the action from the matches. Plus, we'll review some notable matches from Match Day 6 coming up this weekend in the Premier League. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on X and Instagram. Our handle is at @houseup_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. First match we're going to cover from the Champions League, Gio, Bayern 4, Man U 3. I think we kind of predicted the result, the winner for this game, but it's a game that I think the result doesn't really tell us what happened in the game. So let's hear from you first, Gio. What did you take away from this game?
Just a lot of problems at Man U. Clearly, it's just the lack of urgency. The troubles in the back. Onana's huge blunders. It's just you thought we would leave the goalkeeping issues and the goalkeeping blunders in the past with De Gea, but seems like whoever is in net is has a blunder ready for it to happen. But yeah, no, I don't think the urgency is there throughout the game. It shouldn't have to take till the 90th minute for you to score 2 goals via Casemiro at that. And then, once you're in it, once you think you're back in it, 3-2, you guys give up a goal to make it 4-2, which completely obviously takes everything out of that sort of that energy from the team. So yeah, it just seems very weak. It doesn't seem like they can possess the ball, and again, the counterattack just doesn't seem like it's there. Everything still goes through Rashford. Glad to see Højlund finally get his first goal under his belt, although it took a bit of a deflection. To put one in the back of the net is going to be big for his confidence. And the offensive side of Man U really has to look at themselves and really just question. Is it Casemiro isn't there to score us goals per se. It's great when he does. It's definitely cherry on top of the cake. But you can't expect Casemiro to be your main goal scorer, especially in the Champions League. The offensive guys really have to kind of look at themselves and see what they can provide for this team.
For sure. Mac, looking at the scores for Bayern Munich, you have Sane, Gnabry, Kane, of course, with the penalty, and Matthias Tell came on late to score as well. Front line, one of the best in the world, I would argue. Did it look like to you Bayern just had too much for Man U, or were there some problems with, I guess, the way Man U was defending, apart from the goalkeeping mistake that sort of let them down in this game? What were your takes on this game?
I think overall, coming out of this game, as I was watching the Arsenal PSV game live and I went back to watch this game afterwards, I saw the scoreline. I'm like, okay, you know what? As we talked about in our preview, Manchester United didn't get destroyed. It could very well be a closer game. Let's take some positives away from their playing, because you're playing against Bayern Munich, which has the best home record in the group stage in Champions League history. So this is their bread and butter. If you just come away with 4-3 loss, that is not too disparaging if you just look at the scoreline. But coming back and watching the game and seeing how everything kind of took place, both teams were very, very poor. It was just Manchester United were more poor than Bayern Munich in this game. So many more mistakes, individual errors, lack of effort. I think Gio highlighted out. Players that are on the team playing FIFA up to minutes before the game started on live. Like none of this right now in the squad overall is fantastic. Nothing looks great. If you want to be able to pick a negative, you can really start with either team. Obviously, we're generally focused more on the Premier League and definitely more on Manchester United, so we're going to be a little bit more negative on them. But Bayern Munich with that lineup should be playing so much better. There are definitely a lot of mistakes on their end, in my opinion, and they still need to be able to work on to be able to be at that level, which historically and the odds makers have them to be at, where they're in the conversation to be favorites. And this is just first game, of course, in the Champions League. But it's not convincing from either team, but more so from Manchester United for sure.
I feel like you're right. Bayern, even though they did score 4 goals in the end, for some reason it didn't feel like a convincing win. They did have more possession and more shot attempts, but it didn't feel like it clicked for them so far. But for one of their players, Gio, it did click. Maybe the only other player that's going to be rivaling Florian Wirtz for the best number 10 in the Bundesliga. Musiala was bright for them. He created the second goal, so just wanted to shout him out. On the opposite side, even though Man U did concede 4 goals, Regulion, great performance from him. I felt very bright going forward down the left. Does that give you, Gio, a little bit, and considering that it wasn't a complete blowout, give you a little bit of hope for Man U going forward? I guess short term in terms of the Champions League, they do have Galatasaray and Copenhagen, who are two teams that you would think Man U should be able to beat in this group. And also, moving forward with Luke Shaw being out, he could be a pretty good backup for that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought he was definitely one of the bright spots. I love the fact that he went over to pick up Onana. Obviously it was a blunder, but we still got a game to play. You still have to keep your head in it as much as possible. You are a professional. You have to focus on the game. So that's definitely nice to have in a team setting where right now everybody's sort of in awe and sort of those rumors start to go about players pointing fingers at one another. Locker room dust ups and things of that nature. To have a character like that in the dressing room is key, and on the pitch you can tell it's key as well. It just seems like he just needs play time. Under his belt to get a feel of things. Obviously he was out of favor at Tottenham, so he had to look for minutes elsewhere. But so far, I don't really have anything bad to say about him. And yeah, there should be hope. At the end of the day, it was a 4-3 loss, but it was against Bayern Munich, and I think that lineup, again, like Max said, should have dominated the game quite a bit more. So they have to take their positives away. But hopefully it's a wake-up call where they start playing with urgency from minute one, rather than having to make that push. I know it's Man U and like they have history in terms of making a comeback and stealing games, but that's not how you want to win football games. You want to be able to dominate from minute one to minute 90. But yeah, games against Galatasaray and Copenhagen, you hope will be a lot smoother, and hopefully our Højlund is better than their Højlund. So yeah.
No, I get that for sure, and so I do have to bring it back to, of course, we're Canadian, and so we have to go back to one of the comments that Ten Hag brought up against a fellow Canadian, Alphonso Davies, claiming he wasn't that great defensively. To be on, of course, Davies' side, Pellistri, who started on the right hand side, didn't do much for this game, though it was one of his first, I guess, competitive debuts for Man U. Moving forward, though, Man U still have some sort of doubts going in terms of who's going to play on that right-hand side. They have Burnley up next, who have yet to win in the Premier League. So you can look at it in two ways. This could be a way for Man U to bounce back, but if they don't get a positive result out of this game away to Burnley, it could be more questions. What are your takes on that?
They have to get it sort of quick, otherwise, because right now, the tough part with Manchester United as a whole, you have different people saying different things. From a fan's perspective, they're not playing well. Ten Hag said, we're playing well, we're just not making our chances and we're making a couple too many mistakes. As well as the board saying, we don't really need to spend a whole lot more money to be able to, as of right now, unless there's a change of ownership, to be able to bring in better quality players into the club. So you have a lot of different sides saying very, very different things. So the message isn't clear. So if results continue to drag on as they are, you're going to put people in a position to be under the hot seat and more magnified. Against these teams, their next, I would say about a month, realistically, in a normal Manchester United season, they should almost win out every single one of these games. It's at Burnley. They have Crystal Palace and back-to-back in the EFL Cup, as well as in the Premier League, Galatasaray, Brentford, Sheffield United, and Copenhagen, up until they face Man City on October 29th. So generally speaking, for a regular team, that should be a clear run of games. You might drop points against Brentford because they're a tough matchup. Aside from that, it should be clear. If we're too far away from that over the course of the next month, I would say, at that point, the hounding is going to continue. And if then they, of course, is what we'll all assume, is get probably throttled by Manchester City, then I think that's when at that point we're going to have more breaking. We're going to have a breaking point. We're going to have to people are going to start calling for heads. And I think that Ten Hag, by making the comments that he has made, I feel like he's putting himself under more and more pressure and more scrutiny, and separating himself from the fans as well as potentially the players that he's coaching. And that's been a theme thus far for him as a manager. So things have to turn around quick. Otherwise, like I said, heads will roll.
Yeah, and of course, all eyes are going to be on that. So quickly, just before we move on to the next topic, Gio, quick prediction for Burnley Man U. Is this a way back for Man U, or do you think it might be more tricky than we expect it to be?
This needs to be a win, and it needs to be more of a convincing win, and need to score more than 2 goals. I'm hoping for a 3-1 result. That's my prediction.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to some more Champions League action. Mac, Group F, the Group of Death, which we all will keep an eye out for. Give us 2 matches: AC Milan 0, Newcastle 0. We can get into a little more on that. And then PSG 2, Borussia Dortmund 0. Out of those 2 games, anything stand out to you, Mac, that you want to bring up?
So I think that this is a thing that I've talked about quite a bit thus far this year with Newcastle, is that they looked off the pace. AC Milan, I think, really shot themselves in the foot by not taking opportunities that were presented to them. Rafael Leao had a horrible game. I think if he's even playing a little bit better, even kind of 50% of his capabilities, AC Milan come away with that game, because there's so many mistakes, so many lackadaisical movements. He's generally very a hit and miss player, where because of, let's say, his lethargic attitude, I think that's a nice way to put it. He doesn't endear himself to some situations, but generally when he's on the ball, he's spectacular. But there were several times where it looks like he'd be able to take an opportunity to be able to go at somebody, take an opportunity to create for himself or his teammates, and he just made the wrong decision. So I think that Newcastle should find themselves very fortunate to come out with at least a point. It's great for them, though. One moment, probably my favorite moment of this round of Champions League action, was the still photo of Jacob Murphy, who's been with Newcastle for quite a long time, getting to start and how emotional it was to reach the Champions League. So on a personal note, that was very exciting to see, and you can see how much it means to a player that's kind of grown with the club, because he probably expected when the takeover happened, he wouldn't have a job, at least on that current team. So it's great to see something like that, but Newcastle very much are off it, and based off of the 4 teams that are in this group and the performances that did occur, in my opinion, they're in all likelihood the worst team, and probably fighting alongside them in Dortmund, of course, because Dortmund did end up losing. But I feel like Newcastle need to step up. They're under a lot of pressure. They got that first Champions League game off their back. They got the monkey off the wrench. A lot of people were making their first-time debut in this competition, so they need to start picking it up. And same thing for AC Milan if they want to be able to qualify. These were, in my opinion, 2 points dropped. So they need to be a little bit better, because, and I don't know if Gio or you want to be able to talk about it, PSG, they look dangerous. They look surprisingly very threatening from, I guess, how we initially may have thought them going into this competition. I know it's just 1 game, but they look good.
Definitely good. Definitely look good. Of course, Mbappe getting on the score sheet, and Hakimi as well. Right back, but find themselves up there in a striker position to score the 2nd goal. And yeah, it's looking like we expected there to be some sort of transition period for them, those up front at PSG, to get it clicking together. But Mbappe and the likes of Ousmane Dembele and Kolo Muani looking good, and then they're supported by those midfielders, Vitinha in particular, and the other young kid who's playing in the midfield, and they're looking good. Even though Dortmund had some chances themselves, PSG looked like they were comfortable winners at home, and so that's a great positive sign for them. Maybe we can get into a little bit more, but they might be a dark horse for going deeper in this competition than perhaps they did last year. But just want to go back to Newcastle and AC Milan. I guess, yeah, I do agree with you, Mac. AC Milan should feel they drop points here. But away to AC Milan, Newcastle, of course, you didn't play great, but it's a point, and it's a game. It's a competition where you just have to make the most out of your games, and a point away at a pretty tough stadium is not the worst thing. So we'll see what happens. But Gio, do you have anything that stands out from Group F this week?
No, I think guys touched on a lot of it. I think Newcastle, every player should be buying Nick Pope a steak dinner. I think Nick Pope kept them pretty much in it the entire time. And yeah, no, this should definitely be a big hit for AC Milan. They definitely dropped points there. There were a plethora of chances that should have, you know, they should have done better on. One in particular that sticks with me is, a low cross from the left side and Giroud making a cut inwards. You kind of expect him to score those types of goals. Giroud has made a living scoring goals in that area. Very gritty goals, very sneaky goals. So, there are just so many chances where AC Milan could have had. This game could have easily ended 2-3-0. But Nick Pope didn't look nervous and kept his ground, and I think definitely played a fantastic game.
Props to him, of course. Olivier Giroud, French national team goal scorer. Just wanted to remind you all of that. But let's move on, I guess, to some remaining Champions League matches. And I'm going to go first. One that really stood out to me, of course. Actually, you guys might not predict what I'm about to say, but Barcelona 5, Royal Antwerp 0, and it has to be the Joao Felix show. 2 goals in this game, and he looked like, of course, the saga with him and Atletico, we kind of were predicting it wasn't going to go that way. He wasn't going to stay at Atletico for long, and of course he's had his loan move to Barcelona, and it looks like it's the perfect move. A player of that quality now in a system where I think uses him to his best ability. I think he's going to have a great season, and we'll see what happens for him and Barca in the long term, but I'm excited to see what that team will look like moving forward, especially because Joao Felix is now sort of more operating as a second striker, but on the left-hand side with which Ansu Fati would have occupied, I think. But now he's, of course, at Brighton. But that's a game that stood out to me. Mac, is there any other game or something about Barca's game that stood out to you from this week's Champions League matches?
Quickly on Barca, the team just makes a whole lot more sense with a player like Joao Felix coming in. Makes sense why a player like Ansu Fati wanted to be able to go to Brighton for at least a low move to be able to get some minutes. All of it makes sense. It definitely feels like more of a Barca team of old. Not at the peak, of course, but they look like a team like with Busquets gone, Jordi Alba gone, players like that kind of been moved off, where they're able to play players in the correct position like Frenkie de Jong, who we've been screaming about for a while. So just quickly on that, want to be able to bring up that for Barca. I do want to be able to talk about the Man City versus the whatever the other team they faced. Again, I'm going around and I'm seeing this. Am I worried about Haaland? Because there are quite a few chances again in this game. I think you're talking about, and I'll looking at this is where you're talking other strikers that play in the same Premier League team in the Premier League alongside him. Like think of it about Højlund. The amount of chances that he got in those 2 games, this game and then the previous game on the weekend against West Ham, that would take like 10 games of Højlund of opportunities to be able to accrue that many chances. So with Haaland not being able to find the back of the net consistently, this puts a lot more pressure on other players on Man City. Right now, Julian Alvarez is stepping up, is being that guy. Will that continue? Who knows? Because there definitely could be a poor run of form from him. But 2 games where I would say not even just that there weren't any chances for Haaland to grasp because he's facing against a high-quality team. It was that he had those opportunities and couldn't finish. And if that's a trend to continue, I'm skeptical it will. You'll probably end up scoring a bag ton of goals, but there's fine margins when you're playing against the better teams. And right now, they're in a lucky position not to be able to face those teams when Haaland's not at his best. But if things don't change when they face those teams, it could be a concern. So, again. I'm just throwing a little bit of like dirt on Haaland a little bit. Like negging him, is that the right term? Is that the right term? I don't know. No?
Hey man, he's gonna hear this and then come back with 3 straight hat tricks, and then we're just gonna not hear the end of it. But last but not least, Gio, of course, any other game or anything from these 2 games that we just spoke about that stood out to you from this week?
I'll pick a different game. I may or may not have had a bet on it, but Lazio, the 94th minute, I think,
Ooh.
in extra time, keeper comes in and scores a goal. I thought it was just very poor defending at the end from Atleti. You know they, they had a corner, and then it was defended by Atleti, obviously, and instead of clearing it down and deep in the pitch, they just didn't clear it deep enough either. It should have been kicked out of bounds, and even for another corner, even just so you have time to set up and everything like that. But it wasn't out. Lazio got the ball again. Ball back into the net, back into the box, and keeper is there. Very Allison-esque. Scores the draw, and it was super exciting to watch. Well, both exciting and heartbreaking. But I think Lazio definitely deserved it. Atleti again, very poor defending at the end, and that's what happens. Everybody's here in the Champions League and trying to prove a point that they deserve to be here. And obviously have hopes and aspirations to make it as deep in the competition as possible. So props to Lazio, but very poor defending from that Atleti side at the very end.
Of course, anytime there's a goalkeeper that comes up, there's always excitement, and him to get the equalizer at very, very last kick of the game, it's going to always grab the headline. So great shout on that, Gio. But we're going to take a quick break here, boys, and then we'll be back with some Premier League games to preview. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to continue our podcast for today, discussing now some of the upcoming Premier League games, and the big one for this weekend, Mac. Arsenal versus Spurs, the North London derby. This is a big one, of course. Currently, Arsenal are in fourth. Tied, same record as Spurs, but Spurs are in second due to goal difference. Arsenal off the back of a convincing 4-0 win against PSV in their first Champions League game back. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that one first?
Firstly, is that the 4-0 win. This is the best Arsenal played thus far this season. They were confident on the ball, kind of in possession. Everything was flowing. Each winger, Trossard, Saka, had felt the comfortability to be able to take their man a one-on-one, and were creating a plethora of opportunities. And it was kind of shocking that Arsenal, in fact, did not score more goals in this game. So it was kind of where the beginning of the season, Arsenal have come out and got results, but haven't had a great performance. And this was kind of the first time. And of course, for me, led by Odegaard, scoring 2 great goals. Again, shocking that they only signed him for 30 mil. So phenomenal to be able to see him kind of wet his boots as an Arsenal player in the Champions League with this type of performance. But I feel like for this week is kind of, they got their gears going. They were in the mood. And for them, their season's finally started, because off the back to this, to be able to play in the North London derby is a big game, arguably for Arsenal, their biggest game of the season in the Premier League every year. I do though think that this could be a much more interesting game that they've experienced in over the last couple of years in this fixture. Arsenal have won 4 of the last 5 Premier League games against Tottenham, and Tottenham have actually only won 1 time out of the last 30 Arsenal. So very much in Arsenal's favor if you look at the historical record for this individual fixture. But right now, I would argue, as Arsenal are playing very well coming off this game, Tottenham, those start of the season, have played very, very well themselves. Ange just brought a whole different type of attitude. The more he talks kind of out in the media, does more interviews, the more I like him. And the more I actually want to see Spurs do well, which is a weird feeling for me, to be honest, because he just seems to have like such a great positive attitude. Seems like a great guy, and has his team in full support behind him, and they're playing phenomenal football. For me, this might be a little bit too soon for them, because Arsenal I firmly believe had that extra little bit of quality, have that extra little bit all around the pitch where there isn't as many weaknesses in comparison to this Tottenham team. So overall, excited for this match, and there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, of course, plenty to talk about. And just going back to that, both teams off a positive result in the last weekend, and of course Arsenal getting another positive result in the Champions League, one that they'll carry into this game. But on the Spurs side, Gio, of course they're going to be looking to set things right, and their new manager is going to try to get things going by getting a statement win away at Arsenal for sort of his first encounter in the North London derby. There's a different feeling around the Spurs camp, and of course now the fans, I feel like, are a little bit more on board since, of course, the last seasons and all the turmoil there. Do you think there's some more hope on their end that they're going to get something out of this game? Not necessarily all 3 points, but maybe a good performance and a point here. What do you think about this picture?
Listen, I think that's exactly what Spurs want people to think, whether they can just come in here and maybe sneak a result, because I think they're quite dangerous. And this might be one of the weekends that I will be a Spurs fan, although I have predicted that Arsenal will win the Premier League title, which I still think they will. But it's nice to see them, kind of hurt a little here and there in the process. So, look, I know it wasn't a tough competition last week with Spurs being down against Sheffield, but for them to have the character to come back and keep the pressure on and to score those goals late, I think Arsenal can't underestimate them. They have to come with the intention to want to outpossess them and just outplay them in every part of the pitch, because they have such variety up front where Arsenal can get a variety of looks from different attackers, and with a snap of a finger, Ange can have 2, 3 other guys in those 3 different positions that can be a completely different type of attack and cause quite the headache for Arsenal. Especially Gab, where last season he has showed glimpses of where he kind of falters, especially late game. But he tends to come back and score to fix those mistakes. But still, Tottenham have the capabilities to cause trouble for this back line, but I do think everything else in terms of midfield and their attack against the Spurs back line just outweighs it just a little bit. But I do hope for a Tottenham result.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of interesting matchups all around the pitch. So, Mac, let me hear your takes on maybe some potential lineup changes, maybe at keeper position for Arsenal, or any matchups for this upcoming match.
I definitely want to talk about the Arsenal keeper situation. It's been in the monks of kind of what's weighing a lot on Arsenal fans' Twitter accounts, and definitely there's many different opinions of what Arteta, how he's doing. Is he doing it well? But before I want to be able to get to that, I think in this fixture, I think a key player for Spurs, I know it's weird for me to say this, I actually think could be very much for Richarlison, because his ability and his need, I'm saying if they're going to do well for the Spurs team, it's in transition in all likelihood. And I think having a hold-up play striker, being able to connect the lines, I do think, of course, Kulusevski and Son, if they were to play on either side of the wing, or if even it's Brennan Johnson coming in, I think they do have the ability to be able to create for themselves on occasion. But there's not going to be a whole lot of time, in my opinion, where Spurs are going to be able to on the ball and be possessive. So those times are going to come few and far between. So having a player centrally that can link play and help them build it up and to create different opportunities for them, I think is vital. As well as with a kind of the support that the fans have been gotten behind him. If he comes in and scores a goal, as an example, again, I would hate to see it, but I think this is a game that's set up to be able to help build kind of maybe a legacy for him at Spurs as kind of the new striker with Harry Kane leaving, and ingratiate himself further to the fans. But I think for them to play well, they need him to play well. If he doesn't have a good game, I really don't think they have a shot. You probably would expect a mistake from maybe Son, or like I said, Kulusevski be able to create for themselves, or a Madison for Crick, something of that ilk. But for them to be able to, I don't think scoring just one goal is going to be enough in this fixture. They need to score 2, 3, 4 if they're going to come out a win away at Arsenal. Because I'm not really worried on my end in terms of Arsenal be able to create for themselves. So it's really going to be, can Tottenham keep pace and cancel out Arsenal's attack with their own. But to be able to switch over, I'm very curious to see what you both think. I think, Ray, I talked to you about this a little bit previously, is that it's very interesting because the assumption was coming off of Everton that with David Raya playing that game, if there's going to be rotation in net. But of course, he started in the Champions League. And I think this weekend is going to be a very big indicator of how Arteta feels about these players. Because Ramsdale did get Arsenal into the position of course, being a Champions League team now. But is there a separation where Arteta doesn't have the faith that, you know what, to win the Premier League, to win a trophy, Ramsdale's not that keeper? Is he kind of ruthless enough to be like, okay, yeah, he got us here. That's great. We're having the replacement right now. We're ready to take that next step and kind of shove him out the side. Because there's already reports where Chelsea or other teams coming in to kind of make a bid in January for Ramsdale if the situation persists. So I think it's I'm very curious to see Gio. I've talked to you a little bit about it, right? But do you think, or the other proposition on the other side is where if it's not David Raya starting consistently, it's more of a rotation, like we see across every other position, and I feel like that can make sense. And I know I'm going long here, but the idea being is, let's say if a team's generally more crossing the ball a lot more, having a keeper that's maybe a little bit taller or more comfortable to claim, maybe you do it for that game. But then more of a team that wants to put on the counter and you want to focus more on shot stopping, then you'll have a different type of keeper, right? Because just with players, there's different pros and cons to every keeper. But of course, that might cause other issues. So again, it's a very big question, very long-winded there. I apologize, Joe. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Arteta's playing it wrong? Do you think people are overreacting? It's only 2 games. What are your thoughts?
Again, I think these are great problems to have. You have 2 very great and talented goalkeepers. But hey, I think it's absolutely necessary and to be this type of cutthroat manager if you want to take your team to the next level. I think those are necessary makes. At the end of the day, it is a business. You want to achieve what you think you can achieve. And will David Raya get you there? I think so. Like I said in podcast about last season, I was very hard on David Raya too. Great shot stopper. Was probably one of the better shot stoppers in the Premier League last season. Obviously clean sheets didn't completely show for it, but in terms of shot stopping, he was definitely up there in terms of the percentages. So yeah, if you want to take your team to the next level, I think this is a necessary move. Whether or not Ramsdale leaves, I don't think he should. I think he still has great use. If you're not going to get regular Premier League minutes or Champions League minutes, there are League Cups that you still want to win as well, and you will get those chances. A lot of great teams have a 2-back system. Like a 2-keep system where one will play the League Cups and FA Cup games, things of that nature, and still get those starts. And those times is where Ramsdale or Raya will continue to prove themselves. And if they at the end of the season the situation doesn't seem like their type of situation, they can still earn themselves a big move to another big club. So I don't think it's all bad for either party, but I think it is a necessary move for Arteta if he wants to, again, those final cutthroat moves that great managers have to make in order to push their team to the next level. It's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I mean, and like you guys said, well, you guys kind of mentioned it, it's still kind of early, so I'm interested to see how Arteta does play this out. I still think there is room, like you said, Gio, for 2 top Premier League goalkeepers to battle out for one position. Of course, a team that is expected to compete on all fronts, so that's definitely a good problem to have there, Gio. But just lastly, before we move on from this game, I do agree with both of you guys in the sense that Arsenal's firepower compared to the Spurs backline might just be too much, what should take them over in this game. But for Spurs fans, and I'm kind of leaning towards that this season with sort of a couple of my predictions. I'm interested to see how Sarr, Bissouma, and Maddison do against the midfield 3 of Arsenal. I think physically they can definitely match up, and they should have a decent chance to at least create some chances and stifle the offense that Arsenal has. It's just for me that Arsenal will have more than enough to score in this game. Martinelli, I think, is a doubt for this game. So Pedro Porro, he's not great defensively, so maybe that's an easy out for him. But of course, Saka is expected to take on Udogie on the left-hand side. Perisic has been ruled out for the season, so that's not leaving Spurs a lot of cover on the left-hand side. So my expectancy for Spurs is just, hey, if there's a good performance and your midfield that at times last season looked non-existent does perform well, that's a positive. And if you can nick something from this game, there you go. That's a good platform to build on, and we'll see how their season goes. But I guess let's move on to another game that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and that's, of course, Liverpool versus West Ham. Liverpool are currently 3rd in the Premier League, and West Ham are 6th. Both of them came off of 3-1 wins in the Europa League games today, day of recording, but they had to come back to win those games. And even though there were some changes to their starting lineups, we do expect them to go back to their, I guess, more natural starting lineups for this game. And as a Liverpool fan watching this game, Gio, it wasn't that convincing. Of course, conceding first, something that Liverpool have been notorious for over the last season, at the very least. Not a good sign, considering that James Ward-Prowse was, again, with the goal involvements, 2 assists today, and Kudus, a player that I'm highly rate, did get the start and scored for West Ham. I'm kind of nervous about this game. So, Gio, what do you expect for this game?
As you should be, my friend. The best team in London is here to play this season. I'm kidding, Mac. Relax. But no, I definitely rate West Ham very highly. I think, again, there are a lot of doubters this season because, obviously, them losing Declan Rice was huge. Was absolutely, it was astronomical. But for them to bring in key pieces and not have to overspend and really just try to regroup the team because they had a tough season. They probably had to have a sit down with the people, with the players and say, look, where do we want to go with this? We can bounce back the way they are bouncing back, or we can kind of blow it up and start from the very beginning again. But it seems like everybody's up for the challenge, and obviously bringing Kudus is going to be big for them. That's an attacking threat that I think any team would want. And for him to play in that kind of like mid-table team, I think it's great for his development to get acquainted to the Premier League team if he has aspirations, to get to a bigger Premier League club. And again, James Ward-Prowse, the team having that much trust in him to be able to play his game, to put him in good situations for dead balls and things of that nature, and him even looking to score even, is just so fun to watch. And I think they're gonna his long balls and things of that nature are really gonna be targeted against Trent and Robertson over top, because they love to pinch. They love that attack. So yeah, and with Kudus and Mikel Antonio, who is quite strong, and if he does his hold up play well this game, I think they have a very strong chance of one, stealing a point in a draw, or stealing all three.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Gio, I'm not sure Kudus can move to another Premier League team in London, because you said West Ham is the best Premier League team in London. But of course, we'll see what he does. Mac, on the flip side, though, do you think, based on sort of the West Ham style of play that we expect them to do, deep blocks and then try to hit Liverpool on the counter, that's sort of the best way to go at them at this point? What do you expect to happen in this game?
Absolutely. West Ham's best chance is by playing in a deep block and looking to be able to play on the counter. The question for me, so for one, I think you both are being very, very generous to the odds of West Ham winning this game. Liverpool have won their last 6 games against West Ham, have lost just 1 game out of their last 50 league games at Anfield. So I think that this should be a fairly comfortable win for Liverpool if we just look at historical how this matchup has gone and how Liverpool have played at Anfield. I think the interesting part will be is that I don't necessarily think that either of the wide players, if it be a Diaz, if it be a Salah, that's going to be the kind of the game winners. I think for Liverpool to play at their potential against this deep, kind of a low block team, players like McAllister, Szoboszlai, if we can see them try to be able to break the lines, try to thread the correct passes in between and see if we can be able to get in behind or in between the blocks of the West Ham team, I think will be the differentiator. If they do that very, very well, I think Liverpool win this game comfortably. If it be a 3-1 or 3-0. If they don't, this can potentially be a nail biter, because West Ham do have the capabilities to play in transition. They're very comfortable with that. Mikel Antonio is a workhorse of a striker and is willing to kind of sacrifice himself to put players around him, if it be a Jared Bowen, if it not be a Kudus, in position to be able to score. But I think Liverpool, if they were to not be able to break that down, it's because of that midfield issue where they haven't been able to figure that out yet. So that's what I'm looking at a little bit more. But I think, like I said, you two are being very generous to West Ham. Lovely to see it. I understand, Ray, you kind of want to neg them. So, if it doesn't go well, hey, it's okay. But realistically, Liverpool should win this game very, very comfortably.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're saying that, because I'm a little bit more nervous, and I feel that there's a lot more to lose for Liverpool, considering that they are pushing for another top 4 finish this season, and West Ham yeah, they are off the back of that loss against Man City, but losing to Man City and Liverpool in consecutive weeks is not the worst result for them. So there's not a lot for them to lose in this game. It's more so for Liverpool, and so that's why it's I guess giving me a little bit more of the nerves. But another game, and this will be the last game we covered today, will be Chelsea, who will be feeling the nerves. They are currently in the 14th position in the Premier League. They will take on Aston Villa, who are 7th, Mac. This I don't really know what to expect. Aston Villa, just wanted to mention that they did lose day of recording in their Europa Conference League against Legia Warsaw. They did rotate their squad heavily though, and so we expect a lot of their stars to come back against Chelsea. Maybe Unai Emery thought, this is not the Europa League, so I'm not interested in it. It's just a Conference League. But the Aston Villa did beat Chelsea twice last season, 1-0 at home and then 2-1 at Stamford Bridge. Could this continue? What do you think, Matt?
For one, the one thing I want to be able to separate, Legia Warsaw, is that from Warsaw, Poland? Is that's where it's from? Am I wrong? I don't know. I'll be honest. I think
so.
I know we do a soccer podcast. I should know this, but I just find that interesting. Anyway, moving on past that, I think we should use this game as a referendum of how we should correctly talk about it. Aston Villa are the better team. They're the team in Europe. They're the team playing well, had a good season. If they lose this game, they should look at that as a disappointment. I understand we're geared in our brain of how things work when we see Chelsea. Oh, that could be a very dominating team. That could be tough opposition. We ain't in those days anymore, bro. It's just not what it is. So I think Aston Villa should look at this game as, okay, yeah, this should be 3 points for them. When they play well, they should have everything clicking. They understand the system. They have a better manager at the moment. I think that they'll come out with the correct game plan. The benefit to Chelsea, and it'll be interesting to see, is because without the Europa League or European competitions, because they're absolutely horrible last year, didn't deserve it, they have time to be able to at least get to know each other. Hello, my name is stickers on everyone's t-shirt, on everyone's, and be on the same page. I think that's what more so what I'm looking for, is their progression from Chelsea there, where Pochettino, because he has the extra time, is able to implement more of a game plan. And I know they just came back from international break, had one game, and now they're back in it again. So I think that's more what I'm looking for. But Aston Villa should come into this game as the favorite, as a team that if they don't win should be disappointed, because they are better.
Okay, yeah, no, I get that. Based on the table, that's what it says. Gio, do you agree with Mac? This should be an Aston Villa win, or do you think, Chelsea, still a powerhouse, the names that they have on that team could do something? What do you think?
As my dark horse team, obviously I would hope for them to get a result here. But with that being said, ever since that Liverpool opening day match, Chelsea has looked very average at that. Maybe below average. Maybe I'm giving them a little too much credit than they deserve. Could we all be wrong here in our predictions, boys? Could Poch actually be the first one out? It's never not possible with this Chelsea team, with the Todd Bowleys of the world. Obviously he's shelled a lot of money into this Chelsea business and not getting results. They're obviously not going to blame him because he's inputting this money, but they're obviously going to look to someone, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to look to the manager. And is it Poch's fault? It's hard. I don't think you can blame him, but they're going to look for someone to blame. But Chelsea need a result more than ever. I think Poch needs a result more than ever. So if God willing, if Chelsea lose, maybe Poch gets fired.
Oh,
maybe Ten Hag gets fired as well.
I think Ten Hag's gone before Poch.
Yeah, and then hopefully Poch also gets fired, and then he takes the reins over at United. But just wishful thinking here. But I think if Chelsea doesn't get the result, I think he's definitely joined the conversation of managers in the hot seat, which I think there are already a few. But Chelsea need a result here. I don't think a tie does it. I think it needs to be a result, and if it's a tie, it needs to be, a very good performance where all the pundits are saying, and everybody else around the world is saying, this is the Chelsea we kind of expected, although they didn't get the result. I think this is a good match for them to improve on.
I agree. It's a good
Can I ask
match.
one question to the both of you before we wrap up? So I'm going to read out a stat, and I'm going to give you an over/under, and I want you to pick one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So far in 2023, Chelsea have the joint fewest wins, 5, and have the lowest goals per game average of 0.86 of any Premier League team to have played across both campaigns. So that means they score on average less than a goal a game. In this fixture, over under a goal and a half, do they score more than one goal, or do they score fewer than 2? Own goals don't count.
Personally,
Don't cheat. That's not fair.
Personally, that's my concern about this Chelsea team. They tied Bournemouth 0-0 and didn't look great against, was it, I think, Nottingham Forest as well, I think, previously. They haven't looked great, even though Aston Villa play a very high line. Their forwards might have more chances, but they don't look great going forward, so I do not think they'll score more than one goal in this game. What about you, Gio?
I think they will score. I think Villa is notorious for giving up a lot of goals in the games that they have played against strong teams. But I think Chelsea again.
You think Chelsea's going to score twice?
No. I think they'll score.
So you're both going to go for under then? A goal and a half.
Under.
Okay. Well, that's what I want to hear. Beautiful.
I think they will score, but not enough. They weren't.
I agree.
Looking back at it, and obviously based on the previous results, the past 6 games or the past 5 games, they have looked horrible in the final third. They just look like they're scrambling all the time. And even the goal against Liverpool, I think it was quite the scramble for them to get that goal. So, some would even argue that it was on the fortunate side. So until they have proven me otherwise that they can score, in open play, it's hard for me to bet the over on that. And I'm pretty sure the odds on the over would be fantastic if you are a bettor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, none of us here are, but something that we will be watching for this weekend. But guys, this concludes our podcast for today. If you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at @house_of_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Monday when we review the action from this weekend's Premier League matches. But until then, good night, Mac.
Spurs are shite.
Good night, Gio.
Take the over on cards in Spurs Arsenal.
Oh, definitely. See you guys.